Welcome to Reap What You Sow. Today I am here with my new favorite person, Gina Hendrix. Gina, welcome. And to give a brief synopsis of who this amazing person is, Gina is not only a entrepreneur, not only a complete and utter badass, but she is also a celebrity and billionaire matchmaker. What a title.
Thank you.
That's what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
So much rushes to my head when you hear about this because I think there's so much that's unknown. And it sounds like you've been able to successfully put people together who stay together.
Yeah.
And who may not have ever met.
Otherwise. I know, that's what's cool.
So now, I guess let's kind of reel it back to really the intro and the beginning of this whole thing. Now, you get into this. How? You've always been a good connector and things like that. But
that's true. I've always been a good connector. So, I've had 3 careers. So I came out here from Memphis. I was a flight attendant for 9 years for Delta. And I've always followed my passions. So my first passion growing up, I was obsessed with Los Angeles. I was obsessed with Rod Stewart, Scott Baio. And so I won a contest and I got to come to LA and stay for the weekend and meet Rod Stewart when I was still in college. And I was like, okay, that's it. I'm here in LA. I'm going to make friends. And I did. And I was determined to come back. So I became a flight attendant right away, got based out here, followed that passion, which was LA. And did that for 9 years while living here, trying to figure it out. And then I loved styling and clothing and wardrobe. And I couldn't figure out, I would love to be a stylist. I don't know how. And I just followed that passion, took a leap of faith, started that company. And, well, not really a company. I became a stylist, basically. Mm-hmm. And I did that for 10 years. And then while I was styling, I was one of these women that was always obsessed with not only connecting people, but my love life, others' love lives, what makes relationships stick. I was always reading the relationship books. And so in between, styling was up and down. And during the lulls, I, in the early 2000s, wanted to start my own online dating site when it was still brand new. Because I had started trying, there was matchmaker.com was a dating site and match.com. And I thought, this is an awesome idea that these people can connect through a website, but it's not very cool. It was really kind of dorky and lame. So I thought I can do this better. And I wanted to start my own online dating site, but I didn't know the first thing about a tech company or starting. So I tried off and on for 7 years. I kept getting too afraid, let fear shut me down. And finally, a man that was my mentor during this time said, you know what, Gina, you've always been a great connector and you should think about being a personal matchmaker because you love to talk to people in the real world and you like to go out and connect people. And so it's smaller than what I envisioned because I wanted to conquer the world with an online dating site. I wanted to go big, but I didn't know how. And so what I did know how to do was really connect people in the real world, just like he said. So read a book and took another leap of faith like I had with styling and just was all in, 100% all in.
What book did you read?
He gave me a book, actually. There's a couple of books out there, and one of them, God, what are they? I still have them at home, but I haven't read them in 10 years. One of them was just the basics of how to become a matchmaker. And they took you through, it might have been by Lisa Clampett, because she does have, I think it's called the Matchmaking Institute or something. I don't know, but it helped me get at least the courage to start it, and there were some good gems in there that helped me, just the basics, even when you start your company and you form it as whatever LLC or C Corp, for somebody's receipt, they may not want to have matchmaking on the receipt, so have more of a generic, so I have G Hendrix Enterprises LLC, little things like that. But connecting people I was always good at. But I have to say, other than having a passion for it and being a good connector, when I actually started the business, I had no clue what I was doing. I wanted to help men, and I wanted to help women, and I wanted to help anybody and everybody, no matter what they'd pay to hire me to do it. And then quickly I realized it was just way easier to work with men who had champagne taste and a champagne budget, because every man seems to have champagne taste, even if they have a beer budget. Mm-hmm. And that makes things really difficult. Very difficult. So anyway, that's sort of how I navigated the waters.
So at one point, you're running around scrambling.
Yeah.
Having trying to match all these people.
Yes, for a
And
little
then
amount of money.
You kind of narrowed it down to, okay, now what's the next
Yeah.
step? Once you narrow it down, where do you go from there to break into now what I guess in your industry would be like the luxury industry?
Right. So I would say for the first couple of years, 2-3 years, I was figuring it out. Again, good at the connecting part, but there was just a ton of hustle because if you don't charge enough money, you have to have a lot of clients in order to stay in business, keep the lights on. So I was always reading self-help books and, all this stuff. I love it. And I still love it. And, I read something really that stuck with me that said, there's a lot, like the middle is always overcrowded and there's always room at the top because people a lot of times settle for okay. And they're afraid to take huge leaps and ask for a lot of things, ask for the big money, go for the big client. So I was already working with really beautiful women because obviously that's what men generally are looking for. There's never been a guy that came to me and said, give me an ugly woman. So I was already working with really beautiful women. Yeah. And what I realized from talking to these girls is a lot of times they've dated a lot of these high net worth guys. If they're gorgeous, they usually have. And so I would say, hey, do you know any that would be a good client for me? And so they started connecting me with the guys they knew. And I decided just to draw my line in the sand. And first I started charging $10,000 for clients, and then $15,000, and then $25,000. And what was really interesting is that the more I asked, the easier it was to sign the clients. When I was charging $4,000 or $5,000 or $7,000, I was meeting men who wanted to negotiate and get deals and just like wearing me down to the bone. And what men didn't realize is that once you wear me down to the bone, you may get a deal on the price, but I don't really like you anymore. And I can't do a great job for you if I'm not proud to work with you. But if you've worn me down to get this deal,
you can't
it's hard.
with a higher end product,
right?
You get a better result.
Absolutely, and maybe not always. I want to. There's a lot of matchmakers out there that aren't a lot that don't necessarily have a lot of integrity. Unfortunately, I hear this from people all the time. But for me, I do have a tremendous amount of integrity, and I care so much. So, what it allows me by raising my prices, and now I charge, starts $35,000 to $50,000 for a client. But what it does is it allows me to only work with a very few. And it's only guys that I really feel like I can really help, meaning I can give them access to the type of women they want to meet. And it's just a better business. And
you'll find that you get to actually really know the person because you're spending way more time with them. So if you have 1,000 clients that are spending $1,000, well, you can't give the same as if you only have 4 or 5 clients.
Right, exactly.
And that's really where you can give them everything they need and then build up the information for you to go and say, you have to meet this guy.
Exactly.
And that's really tricky, I think, for someone who's in your industry of like deciphering where you want to fall on the spectrum. And I don't think anyone just starts at the top. You have to learn.
You're right. You have to learn, for sure.
You have to learn, and it sounds like you started to do that. You not only through personal, but then you started reading, and then on top of that, you went in the field and then started getting kicked around. You're like, okay, that's it.
Yeah.
I'm going
to the top. Going to the top. And I mean, and saying that, a lot of people immediately go to, rich guys and old rich guys and young girls, but actually that's totally not the truth in my actual business, because I'm also very particular about that. I don't do really broad age gaps. So, if a guy were to come to me and he's 50 or 60 and he wants someone in their 20s or, even early 30s, I'm like, I'm not going to be working with that guy. Like, that's just not going to be the right fit for me, because I feel like, and I tell men this, that the bigger the age gap, the higher the chances are that, higher the chances, it's like, come on, almost a certain thing, that it's just about the money. The girl only cares about the money. And there's exceptions, certainly, but the majority of girls, if they're really, really young and there's a big age gap, they're just in it for the money. And that's fine if somebody wants to have that business, but that's just not the business I have.
That's not for you.
No.
And I guess there's also just at a point, it's hard to it's even harder to have a real connection.
Sure.
When you're putting people who are 20 years apart. Well, there's a lot of things that happen in 20 years. I mean, even 20 days.
Right.
Things move. Boom.
Sure.
Yeah, I mean, and that's where it's really hard to have that genuine connection that you're really pushing for. And if it's not, I guess what you're really saying is that if your values and integrity don't match up with the client, the money doesn't matter.
That's exactly what I'm saying. You should be my PR guy, Seth. No. It's actually great. But it's very true. And so, the men that come to me or that are referred, usually most of my guys still come through referrals, but usually it's not because they don't meet beautiful women. My guys meet a ton of beautiful women. They're wealthy, they're good looking, but integrity and quality is what's so hard to find.
You realize later that looks fade away.
Well, they want super beautiful too, but yes, they want more than that.
But that
more than that.
That will
sure.
make you happy for a couple years until you realize there's no substance, and that's where it's tricky. Where you want to have someone who yes is pretty and yes they're gorgeous, but they also have some grit to them or whatever it is that they're looking for. They have that, and that's not always easy to navigate, and it's not really easy to put on an exam of like, do you have these characteristics?
Right. Are you compassionate? Do you have integrity?
Yeah.
And so that's sort of my job, is to find these girls and screen them and kind of put my stamp of approval on them.
And I guess a good question too is how do you
how do I vet them?
Yeah, how do you vet someone?
So it's tricky, because what I've learned through having my business is I've always been pretty intuitive, and I think we're all intuitive to a degree. It depends on how in touch with it you are. But for me, I can sort of see through people in a way. I give people the benefit of the doubt, and I let them show me who they are. So it's these telltale signs I'm looking for. Everything from how soon does she get back to me? Does she, is she appreciative of me and what I'm trying to do for her? Does she, when I meet everybody in person. That's another thing. I meet everybody in person, my guys and my girls. I want to see them from the front, from the back, from the side. I want to see, do they show up on time? Do they come in a hurried mess, or are they well put together? Are they well spoken? If I buy them lunch or coffee, do they send me a thank you text? Are they gracious? So I'm looking for these little telltale signs. Right. Do they pull up in a nicer car than me, or a Rolls Royce, and yet they can't explain how they make their money? I mean, I'm looking at everything here, and it's the things they don't tell you that are telling for me, that I'm looking for.
And I think that's in any industry, any business. Like,
sure.
Yeah, my ideal client shows up on time.
Right.
Or early.
Absolutely.
And that's what I like.
Yes.
Without even saying anything, you're saying I appreciate your time.
Right. You're being respectful.
That's all we have.
Mm-hmm.
That's all I got is my time, and you don't want to waste it. And I guess for the guys, not only there is a characteristics for what they want in their partner, appearance wise, but what about emotionally? So how do you vet through emotionally of like, what does this person really want? Because they can't always describe it.
Right. So you're asking me first, how do I discern, like, emotionally what the client wants as opposed to externally what he's telling me?
Correct.
Well, I mean, you know what? Usually they do. They'll say they want a woman who's more soft and feminine or vulnerable. They use that word a lot. A lot of my guys, and I talk to women about this as well and try to give them advice. They don't want a woman that's going to show up and just talk, and not be somebody who's listening, who is also just in her feminine. And that's actually hard for women to navigate these days, because a lot of women, if they're not getting their bills paid by dudes, then they're probably a woman who's out conquering the world, right? But that's a fine line to ride, because my guys want a woman who's smart and interesting and to some degree busy with her own life, but she can't be too busy. And she can't be too. I know it's a fine line, and it might not be fair, but when men hire me, that they have to be honest about what they want,
what they really want, or else, I mean, that's a huge problem if you bring someone who is exactly what they say. And then,
Right.
I guess, I read a book a couple years ago, and it was called The 5 Love Languages.
Yes, people talk to me about that book a lot.
I mean, I think it's one that it's very interesting and well thought, because there's true. When you can find out what you like, then you can, and then you start to learn what the other person likes. There's a better
fit.
Yeah, you
long-term fit for sure.
Or if you're able to adapt to someone else's needs and they're able to adapt to your needs, then maybe that could work. But primarily, you want to have someone with a similar type of systems.
Yeah, I mean, I find that people need to match on so many different levels. Are these two people going to be attracted to each other? Are they going to match up intellectually? Goals, morals, values, those things. And then there's the intangibles. I mean, you could have mannerisms that somehow remind me of a guy I dated that just irritated the hell out of me, even though we match perfectly on paper. So there's always these little things that you can't factor in that are just these intangibles.
Wow. Yeah.
So you get as close as you can, and then you put two people together and you see what happens. I mean, but from my perspective, my job is to pre-qualify as close to the line as I possibly can get, and then from there you just have to see if those two people have chemistry.
Well, what's the perfect match?
I don't know. I mean, you can't say there's a perfect match. There's only different matches for different people, right? So there's not one. If there was one perfect match, that'd be even harder. I mean, you have your perfect match, I have my perfect match, and everybody has their perfect match. But I think that I have to first say, are these two people going to be attracted to each other? Because like women can be become more attracted to a guy depending how he plays his cards. But men, I find, they're either attracted to her or they're not out of the gate, and that doesn't change.
And
so
I think you can build attraction, but it may not do the same that it would for maybe the opposite sex. Like there's definitely
Right.
I've definitely been in situations where I've not have been sold, and then was like, oh, I really like you, but it's just not.
You were never hot for her.
Yeah.
And that's never changed.
Right. That's what I'm saying.
Yes.
And you're like, oh, but
Yeah.
not. And
Right. So to hold a guy's interest, she has to be physically attractive enough for him. And then you go and you see what happens. I mean, I set somebody up and because I didn't notice this when I met her because she didn't do it to me, but then she did it to him, whereas she was just, and I think it was because she was nervous and maybe wasn't nervous when she met me. Maybe a little intimidated, but she was just talk, and that's him telling me this, talk so much, and she wasn't listening. So then when I went to set her up with somebody else, because she's fantastic, she just needed a little bit of feedback. I didn't say he said that. I just made sure to tell her that the next guy I was setting her up with, I go, he's really big on, women who listen. And I was trying to tell her without telling her.
A little inception.
So then that next guy, he really liked her, and they went out again. They're going out on a third date, as a matter of fact. So,
wow.
Yeah.
From my experience of I'm lucky enough that I have really great friends, and I also have a lot of great friends that are women, and I'm able, like one of my best friends is a woman, and she tells me we talk about other stuff, and it makes it easy for me of being like, oh, I have this problem. I call someone, I'm like, what is she thinking? You think like her, and
she'll break it down for you?
Yeah, and one of the greatest things I got from her was in a situation where she was complaining about her boyfriend at the time, about how he doesn't listen.
Yeah.
And
it's a big one.
Oh my
it's huge.
gosh. I remember driving, I was like, oh, this is good. This little golden nugget. And I realized the more you can listen, the better.
Absolutely. But on both sides, for sure.
Of course. Yeah.
For
you
sure.
just hear what people say, and actually listening, not just hearing the words and then regurgitating something, but processing.
Right.
And then actually saying something that's of value. And that's where I was talking about this recently, and they called it mansplaining.
Oh, sure. That's a very popular word these days. Yes.
Yeah. And I started laughing because I definitely can be guilty of that. Everyone is guilty of just jumping in and telling you the solution and not listening. And what I've noticed is more common than not is that they will find their own answer. whoever it is, if you just listen, they'll almost come up with
Yeah.
their own solution.
I mean, I find that really the number one mistake I think that men make when it comes to dating.
Listen up.
Listen up. Here it is. I think they give up too easy. I think that, and I'll tell you an interesting story. And it's an example of this. And I think that it's a hard sea to navigate these days because, a lot of guys don't want to be stalkers. They don't want to be, the whole Me Too movement. But there is a fine line. And, a guy was telling me just at a party the other night that he met this girl, and he's a little older. So he was lucky. She was younger and she sounded super hot. He said she looked like Jennifer Lopez and, and he's no like high roller. He's just a kind of a regular guy. And she was a nurse and she sounded great in every way. And he was going on and on about, she was so great. And they went, I think, on 4 dates, okay? And she never, he never made a move, or if he did, it was sort of, she gave him, like, the cheek kiss. And then finally, after the 4th date, I probably said, hey, I had a great time, da-da-da. She said, I had a great time, too, but I'm really only interested in being friends. Okay, so he said, okay, that's fine. We can hang out again. But, we're going to have to split the bill, which was really just so lame. And he said he did it because he was pissed off because she said about friends, it was really childish he was being very childish. So anyway, here's what I told him. I think if you really like the girl, now if you're so on her or whatever, and she says friends, you're out. But if you really like her, like this guy was saying how she was like perfect, he should have gone for the long play. And I told him this, he should have played it smart, which is to keep his cool, agree, sure, we can be friends, and at least try to get her out 4 more times. That's because if I had an audience of women here, I guarantee you they would agree with me because I talk to women all the time. Women, she could change her mind about him, but because what I feel like she was really just telling him was that she just needed a little more room to figure out if she would like him or not. She needed him to step back a few steps, because if a guy tries to make a move too soon before a woman is positive that she likes him, then it can turn her off, and she just needs to step back. But I know in my experience, my own and seeing others, that if a guy played it smart and more of a long play, and maybe just 4 more dates, I mean, it doesn't have to wait months for God's sakes, but 4 more dates, and as long as she's returning his text and she's being communicative and, not totally blowing him off, then she still has 1 foot in the door, and you could change your mind if you play your cards right.
And I think that's a tricky situation to be in, because you're setting the expectations on the front hand that we're starting to be in a relationship. We're trying to start a relationship.
Sure.
And then now it's, now we're friends. And that gets tricky because the one party definitely still does not want to be friends.
Right.
Like the guy definitely does not want to be friends.
Right.
But he has to restrain.
Pretend to be friends, I guess. No, but I don't know about pretend to be friends, but I don't know that it's restrain. Well, okay, we can use that word, but I would say he just needs to chill out and relax a little bit, because, I mean, you wouldn't want a girl if she was Anya, if you wanted a little space, right? Nobody does. So I think that there's nothing wrong with a guy just not. A lot of times men these days, they get their feelings hurt so soon. And women really want a guy who's in his masculine. There's nothing sexier than a man who's secure and in his masculine. They don't want a guy who's going to be like a big baby, And that guy ended up acting like a big baby, and she could have probably turned around. I bet you if I talked to her privately and I said to her, if he had given you a little more room, I bet she would agree with me. And I'm not making this stuff up. It's because I just talk to women all the time. And I just think that these days, because of the apps, because of just the super highway of dating, I like to call it, I think that guys, that guy's going to do is he threw in the towel, and now he's going to go back, and he's got to search for somebody all over. Now he's going to go out on 4 more dates. And so rather than invest a little bit more time, 4 more dates is all I'm saying, into this girl that he knows he really likes,
he's going to look for.
He's going to start all over again, which is, the definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over and expecting different results. So I'm saying try something a little different next time and see if that can get you to where you want to be.
Yeah, and it's, I guess, because one of the things I always talk about is that my grandparents were married for 54 years.
Mm-hmm.
Now, my belief system is that they didn't have the same technology that we do.
Correct.
Therefore, the communication was limited. So for my grandfather to find someone that he was interested in had like 4 New York blocks. That's all they had.
Right.
It wasn't really like he was going all over the place. He had whatever was in a very small vicinity. And then from that, he meets my grandmother, and then their communication is like a couple days, like you call her on the phone, and that's all you really get.
Right.
Or write a letter.
Right.
But you can't, right now I can get on my phone and text whoever I want and know what's going on. I can get on social media. So through time goes on, my grandfather still was a pretty ambiguous guy for years. And I remember one of the last times.
What do you mean ambiguous guy?
Well, we went to dinner, and he still had stories that she never knew because of just
Okay.
like, in a good way of like, there was some goofy story he was telling me about something that happened to him at work. He did printing press for the Washington Post, and he did some goofy thing and whatever, and he was telling me about it, and my grandmother looked at him and said,
I didn't know that
story.
That's funny. That's
And
adorable.
where now I can tell you, with communication being so easy and right now immediate, not only are people less patient, but you can find out so much so
Everything
quick.
about them, right.
And then at what point where you're no longer interesting because I know everything. Well,
Right.
It's like, well, what are you doing? Oh, I'm at lunch. I'm doing a video. I'm doing this.
Right.
Well, when I see you, what else are we going to talk about? We just did it all day.
Well, hopefully you still have other things to talk about. Hopefully.
But that's a lot. It's just a huge shift from where now there's so much you can do.
Right.
There's so much you can talk like immediately.
Sure.
Whereas before there was like, it was exciting to go on.
A little more mysterious.
A little more mysterious,
Right.
which I think sometimes has a benefit because
Sure.
it creates excitement.
Right. And I think though also in terms of them, the way they met and the length of time they were married, I think that, when your options are more limited, you tend to make it work with what you got. You're
True.
working with what you've got.
True.
Whereas now
Abundance.
people are working with what they've got because they've got so many options. So they're working so many options. And it's a bummer, but like technology's made dating even harder these days. Nobody knows who's who on the apps. They don't know who has integrity, who doesn't. They don't know who's going to show up and look like. So it's interesting, but technology these days has actually made dating easier and harder. It's easier to meet people, but then it's harder to determine who's going to be right for you because it's just overwhelming and confusing.
And sometimes you can have this idea that, well, the next best thing
Sure.
is right around the corner.
Right.
This is interchangeable. We'll just find someone else.
Right.
Because there's so much.
Yeah.
And I guess it just makes it's just very different. It's very different than where it was and where it is now. And, you're still in business because people still want to meet the people.
Right.
And not everyone has the knowledge where to go or how to meet this person. And
I actually think more than ever, now that everybody has been doing all these apps, I see like younger guys are coming to me. I mean, my youngest client right now is 26, and then I have a lot of guys in their 30s and 40s. Because the thing is, as long as they have the money to hire me, they see the value in the fact that I can cut through all the noise that for them is very time consuming, and they work a lot, and so people are getting so exhausted on the apps, and if they're looking for a substantial relationship, they would love the help of somebody like me that can cut through all the noise for them.
And the big thing, I would say your probably biggest concern, especially for the people that you're servicing, is, well, if they're wealthy people want to take.
That's exactly
and
it,
this
for sure.
and the guys that you're working with, they just want a relationship.
Right, with a great girl.
And he just so happens to have financial security.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden, he's got more options to do with, but doesn't have anything genuine.
Correct.
And then he's like, oh, gosh, I don't know.
Right.
I'm
So
just
they
trying to
need
find someone
somebody
nice. And
So I'm more of a gatekeeper
Right.
in a lot of ways. You
Right,
know,
yeah.
I'm the screener and I'm the gatekeeper because, I mean, these girls basically they have to get through me to get to my guys. And another thing,
And you're tough.
And I'm tough. I'm tough. And I talk to these girls a lot about the Instagram stuff they have. Because, girls these days, they're all over Instagram. And, the less clothes they wear on Instagram, the better it is for perhaps their business, depending on what business they have. But, they get money from their posts. And the less clothes they wear, the more followers they get, the more money they make, blah, 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 blah. But what they don't realize is that if they're looking for a really substantial guy, now I say to the girls, these guys they'll take you to dinner, they'll take you to bed, they'll even take you shopping, but they're not going to take you to meet their parents, their family, or to the altar if they don't respect you, right? So I've had to tell these girls, you got to clean up your Instagram. If you're looking, because they're like, Gina, I really want to meet a great guy. And I said, I cannot set you up with my guys if your Instagram looks like this, because it's,
it's your marketing.
It's her marketing. They see it. Listen, my guys see it and they think that is who she is. That may not really be who she is, but it's who she's showing to the world. And these guys, if they're dating the girl, they don't want their friends to see it. These are guys who a lot of times are like billionaires on Forbes list, and they have a philanthropic organization, or they have a think tank. And then people see, oh, you're dating this girl, and yeah, it's not good. Not good.
Yeah, you want to keep it private. I mean, that makes sense. Well, so one of the things that I read about you also is that you're an author.
I wrote a book, yes. And I'm working on my memoir right now, too.
All right.
Yeah.
Now we're talking. And I believe it was 2011. It was your first book. And it was Stop Being a Bitch and Get a Boyfriend.
Yes, correct. That's my book.
So I want to know what advice and things like that you offer through your books and through other stuff. What's the advice that you run through for men and women?
Thank you.
Yeah.
So I wrote the book for women, and listen, the title is funny. I've said it to myself before, like, Gina, just stop being a bitch, get a boyfriend. So it's what I've even said to myself. But the book itself was not just about being a bitch at all, actually. It's really about all the things women do and men do. I mean, the book actually you could twist it and make it for men as easily. It's really about how when someone of the opposite sex comes into your life, and you're great and you're fine on your own, but as soon as that person comes into your life, you either become, needy or insecure or bossy or bitchy or controlling or whatever it is. These issues come out. And instead of keeping the balance, which I think everybody shouldn't be at 0 where they have no opinions, and they shouldn't be at 100 where they're off the deep end with whatever their issue. You want to keep a healthy balance, and that's really what the book is about. So now actually, just like in the next month or so, I'm starting these coaching programs for women and men based on all the secrets I've learned from the women, all the secrets I've learned from my billionaire bachelors, and I'm just helping them know what to do, what not to do based on an actual matchmaker's perspective, because there's so many like love and dating coaches out there, but I think, and there's very few matchmakers who've actually become coaches. It's weird. And so I think there's no person more qualified to help people find love and navigate the dating space better than a matchmaker, because I've seen behind the scenes of what it takes. I'm like a puppet master. What does it take to get this guy to go through the steps to make it work with this girl, and what does the girl have to do? There's a lot of behind the scenes stuff that happens, and unless you've seen both sides, you don't really know what really goes on.
And that's why I always say that it's great to have a female friend, because
there you go.
I've been on the side where I'm with my closest friends and we're sitting on the couch and I'm like, I don't know what to say to this.
And she'll help you.
And then like, whatever, I'll call her, please, what do I do in this situation?
Right.
And then I get my guy friends, and then I get a woman perspective, and then I make my own decision, and I'm able to have better results because I've been able to have friends on both sides and say, hey, and that's the funny part. And even for my other friend, like she'll call me and be like, I just don't understand what's going on. And I'm like, oh, well, let me hear it. And then boom, we go into that. And that is such a gift to be able to have both sides of the fence and being able to really see it, especially, for me being a guy, like I'm more rational, and at least me, myself is more rational, where some people are a little more emotional, and that's where things get tricky, because your emotions can just, you really like someone, they get the best of you.
And it all comes down to communication in every relationship. And whether it's business or friendship or love, it's all about straight, clear communication. And so many people are afraid to really communicate with each other. And so that's why I think dates 1, 2, and 3, those are the most crucial, because that's where you're both sort of figuring out, are your communication styles similar, or are they completely different? And, it's sort of like you could be both speaking English, yet because your communication styles are so different, it's just two different languages.
You are preaching that is the basic information I give to all of my friends about this subject, because if you can't muster up the courage to say that you didn't like something, well, then they're just going to do it again, and then you're going to be resentful that they did something that they didn't know you didn't like. That's insane.
And a lot of times that's what are you referring to girls doing that, or are you saying guys do it too?
Both don't communicate.
Do too?
Yeah,
I think guys just communicate in a different way, but women, a lot of times, and I've had them do it with me, where they just go silent on you and they want you to figure it out, and it's like, I can't figure it out. Can you just tell me what the issue is here? And then guys, I think sometimes, again, I think guys get their feelings hurt too easily. I think they need to tough it out a little bit more, I really do.
Rejection doesn't sit well, I guess.
I know it doesn't, but you know what? We all get rejected, so it's like you just put your big boy pants on and you man up, and I think that actually really women would be a lot more responsive to a guy that was. The pouty baby doesn't work, right? And the pouty baby girl doesn't work either. So nobody likes that. So I think even if a woman, were to be a grown-up and communicate clearly and not like, figure out why I'm mad, and just communicate clearly, it would help so much. And then I think for guys, same thing. It's like, don't get your feelings hurt. Just be direct. And if a girl, here's what I say. If a girl doesn't get back to you right away, don't freak out. Just chill out a little bit, because people get busy. People have things going on in their lives you don't know. Just give them a little space.
You're clearly good at what you do.
Well, thank you. I think I just see it, because this is all I do all day long is talk to guys, talk to girls, and I'm the middleman, So I've just seen it for 10 years.
And that's all the stuff that you're talking about is all things that are so true, and they're so simple.
But people need to be reminded of it over and over again.
Because you're not texting someone all day long or whatever. It's probably because they're busy.
Right.
And I guess some of that comes from insecurity and all the other stuff, but then a little bit is like selfish, like it's all me. It's me.
Right.
It's me.
Good point.
No. The person's busy. That's okay.
Yeah.
And I guess there is some where you, as a guy, like, you don't want to be too persistent, because then it's weird. And that's where I think that line gets kind of, well, she said she wanted to be friends. Is she really communicating that she wants to be friends with me, or does she want to be something else? And that's where that communication is so crucial, where you can directly establish what.
I think there should be more real dates made and less texting. Right? So, it's funny, because my hairdresser's a guy, and he's very cute and straight. And we always, of course, whether I'm in my Lyft or my Uber or a tow truck driver or the hairdressers or wherever I am, I always end up talking to people about relationships, always. And so I was talking to my hairdresser the other day, and, again, good-looking guy, a lot of options on Instagram, all the hot models. And so he was talking about how he met a girl, and he said, and we were texting all day long, and all of a sudden she said, I'm going out with my friends tonight. And I was like, okay. And he goes, and that was it. And then she stopped texting me the rest of the night. I go, okay. And what's the problem? I go, well, are you just going to keep texting her all night long? Like,
What else
don't
do you have to talk about?
I know. I said, isn't it okay that she's going to go out and do something? And then he kind of got his feelings hurt. He got his feelings hurt a little bit about it, that she couldn't, keep talking to him. And then he said, and then I texted her this morning and she was hungover. And I said, listen, she's a young girl. She went out. Big deal. Like, why do you keep texting? Like, women get irritated. And I don't care if you're a young girl. Just stop with the texting. Why don't you just ask somebody out, right? So more real dates, less texting.
It's great.
Old school information. It still works.
It does still work. It actually works better.
Yes.
Because so little are doing it.
So little are doing it. And girls want to go out. If they're texting you, they want to be asked out. And if you're asking them out and they're not going, then they're not really interested anyway, and you need to move on.
Simple.
That's your answer. Keep it simple. Keep it simple. And let's talk about our promotion.
That's
we're
what
doing
I was going to say, too.
Good.
So one of the things that me and Gina are working on is that we own a nonprofit. We started a nonprofit called Sharp Dressed Man, and we recycle suits and give them to guys who are getting back up on their feet.
Love it.
And Gina came and we started talking. I was telling her about this program that we have, and she's decided to not only go and reach out to all of your clients and tell them, hey, if you want to clean out your closets, it's such a great deal, but you're also offering.
Yes. I'm offering $5,000 off of my matchmaking services to men who donate 5 suits or more. Because I just want to incentivize them because, I love philanthropic causes. And I mean, listen, I'm not perfect. I'm pretty close. No, I'm not perfect, but I love to give back. Today, we're having these fires, and I'm trying to get single women who are displaced with their animals. I'm trying to get them places to stay. I've been working on that all morning. But I have an organization called Models and Mutts.
Correct.
And so with Models and Mutts, I get models to come out. We raise money for different animal rescues, and then I take these girls with high Instagram numbers to the shelters, and they take pictures with dogs that are red listed. Basically, they only have a limited time left before they'll be euthanized at the shelter, so the girls can use all their masses, all their huge followers to hopefully get the dogs adopted. So I always try to find ways to give back. And so when you and I met at the networking event, and I heard what you did, I thought, oh, this is awesome because I work with so many guys that have suits, and I just love what you're doing. And so I know that you guys are trying to branch out here to LA. And that's a big thing of what I'm telling all my guys. It's like, you guys have had a lot of success in Baltimore. I have a client in Baltimore, by the way.
Awesome.
Yeah, he was here and he moved back to Baltimore. And I just want to help you guys be able to really launch this here because it's just such a worthwhile cause. I love it.
Thank you. And we're almost there. We're getting more and more clothes, and the final deal is I'm getting them all set up, and then the partnerships that you need to have, we want to make sure every guy is actually getting help.
Right.
So we're just about ready to really start opening the door to the masses.
Oh, good.
So
good. I'll do whatever I can to help.
Thank you.
I love it.
And you already are, and that's the type of stuff that I need, is especially because not everyone gives without incentive. So thank you for being
so
one
I'm
of
trying
those.
to incentivize. But if it's nothing more than them giving suits and they don't want matchmaking, that's totally fine too. I really feel, just as a person, I like to help. I mean, I like to help people and animals, and it's what I do. Somebody emailed me this morning, and I had to ask you. She says, Gina, all I have to give is a brand new unused tuxedo. Would you want that?
Sure.
Yeah?
Sure.
I mean, so is a man going to show up to a job interview in a tuxedo?
No, we'll put them at sometimes at, like, graduations of galas.
Oh, great.
Graduations of nonprofits. They do formal stuff. Or if
good to know.
They do a big gala and they want someone to speak that's been through their program. They'll have a big black tie dinner.
Okay.
And then take the guy, put him in a tuxedo, and then put him on the podium and share about his experience. So their clothes will always get used, no matter what it is.
Great.
High school proms. Seriously, anything, the clothes will get put to use.
And do you take shirts and ties as well, or?
Yeah, shirts, ties, shoes, the whole thing.
Great, love it.
Well, Gina, thank you so much for coming out.
Sure, thank
you
for
for
having me
being here today.
Love it.
And I'm for anybody who is having a struggle in the love life, listen to this, because you gave some great intel on the other side of things
Thank you.
for men, for women, the whole thing. So
And the coaching programs I'm setting up are affordable. So I made them affordable so that people could have access to me, even if they can't afford high-end matchmaking. If they, want
But
me
they
to
can
help
get
them,
tips. They can get
get my
information.
one-on-one coaching. So it's invaluable and it's affordable for them. So there's
That's
that.
what I'm talking about. So people can actually get help.
Yes, and they can go to my website, exclusiveinla.com. So that's exclusiveinla.com or ginahendrix.com. And that's how they find me.
And they find you.
How
Deal.
they find me.
Well, thank you so
Thank
much for
you.
coming. And
Love it.
that's it for Reap What You Sow.